Welcome to Chief Experience Officer, Brand Experience's multimedia series that features exclusive interviews with consumer-facing goods and retail thought leaders on building superior brand experiences. For this episode of CXO, I met with Alex Tosolini at the American Sign Museum in Cincinnati, which is the largest public museum dedicated to signs in the United States. Alex is Senior Vice President of New Business Development at Kroger, former Senior Vice President of Global E-Business at Proctor Gamble, and a speaker at the 2017 Brand Ammonium Conference and Festival, which happens October 11th through 14th, also in Cincinnati.
With your experience with Kroger and with Procter & Gamble, you had a chance to work on many brands that are across categories. You've had a chance to work on the manufacturer side, the CPG side, as well as working on the retail side. So you have a lot of insight into what someone needs to do if you want to market a new brand versus keeping a brand fresh. Can you speak a little bit about the differences between these two different types of practices and how you can optimize either one?
So, lots of questions in this one. First of all, building great brands is relevant for both manufacturing and retailing companies. Everything starts with understanding the consumers or the customers you want to engage with. Everything starts with a brand having a clear purpose and where they want to go in the long term. So the foundation of a brand is having some clear strategic choices that are going to be the foundation upon which you build a brand in the long term. And to keep a brand fresh is more about the execution, the plans, how to keep the brand relevant in today's economy and in tomorrow's world.
Definitely, and I could see that you talk about the understanding the customer. You have a very interesting background because you've looked at the consumer experience through, again, the brand and then as well as the retailer, but you've also looked at it through the lens of e-commerce, which is becoming so much more important today. So when you look at the retailing landscape, and it's like, how can marketers leverage these digital technologies to elevate the physical experience in the stores or with their packaged product, with their brand?
So digital is really changing the way we as consumers interact with brands. And it's changing how brands can interact with their consumers. The fundamental needs of the consumers are very much the same. People want to save time, save money when they shop. This is what we call functional benefits, but we are discovering three emotional benefits that are becoming more and more important. People tell us they want to feel connected to the brand, they want to be inspired, and they want to be cared for. So as a marketeer, because of digital and because of the future, you want to fulfill the functional needs of save time, save money, but also start addressing the more emotional needs. And this is where digital is playing a great role. You got the immediacy, you got the inspiration, you got the education, you got the knowledge, and you also have the purchasing pattern where people can access brands like never before.
Definitely, and we're seeing that digital is important. We're seeing more use in digital. We're seeing definitely more volume in digital, but at the same time, we're seeing this kind of consumer shift. And specifically, I'm thinking about some of the research that's coming out about Gen Z and Gen Alpha. As they are coming into the market, we're surprisingly seeing these digital natives wanting physical experiences. So how do you as an individual, how do you keep up with all these consumer insights, knowing what the consumer wants when these different generations are definitely wanting different things?
There's no doubt that consumers are changing, and even if we talk about generation segments, the future is much more personal. Every single consumer is an individual who needs different things in their relationship with brands. I also agree with you that the future will always be a combination digital and also physical interaction. Now the difference depends on the categories. Now some categories will have a much more developed penetration of digital interaction or digital purchases. But overall, I completely agree with you. The best brand experience is a combination of digital and what I call analog or real life experience in stores or wherever consumers decide to interact with the brands. So design very, very important in the branding world. And then the job of everybody, of this multifunctional team, where design sits at the table, is to create the best possible, most relevant experience for each individual. And this is where consumer understanding, data, insights, primary research are all capabilities that every company needs to build to be able to create the experience which ultimately translates in a personal connection between the consumer and each brand.
We live in a fast-changing digital world. Dynamic communication and social expression influence just about everything we do. Business is digital. Impact is instant. Brands and customers interact in amazing new ways. From postage stamps to packaging and billboards, HP's Graphic Solutions business is leading these transformations, creating innovative digital print technologies that enable more effective, engaging communication between brands and end users.
How is building a brand and keeping a brand fresh different?
Okay, maybe the way I look at things, brand equity is the long-term foundation, is the long-term strategy on what you want the brand to stand for. Keeping the brand fresh is more to do with the short-term plans and executions that hopefully are relevant for the audience you want to connect with in the time you're going to create your marketing plans. So I was involved in a lot of brands and marketing plans. So maybe if I go back in memory lane, one of the best example I recall was when Tide went back to the Super Bowl. I think it was 2007 or maybe 2008, but the brand decided to develop a piece of copy, a TV advertising, that was going to be aired during the Super Bowl. And this was the beginning of the digital transformation between brands and consumers. And I remember that one of the brand managers decided to ask consumers to film and send us their own spoofs of the copy called Talking Stains. And I still remember today, we got almost 40 or 50 commercials sent to us by consumers doing their own version of the TV commercial. And the big lesson there was how brands have a two-way communication with consumers, and the best way to build a brand is to engage the consumers into the discussion. So this goes back 10 years ago almost. So the best brands have a very clear purpose, which identifies the reason why they exist. And most of the big brands fundamentally care about the consumers they interact with. What digital is bringing to the world is this two-way or multi-ways dialogue between brands and consumers. A dialogue that in the past was not possible because consumers did not have a platform to be able to interact with brands. Today, there are plenty of platforms that consumers can use, leverage to have a conversation with the brands. And the same platforms brands can use to get closer to their consumers. So it's a much better world now to create amazing brands.
That's an interesting way of looking at things. I wonder when you're evaluating your new business opportunities, how much of how much consideration do you give this idea of can the brand connect? Does this opportunity allow us or gives us the ability to connect better with our shoppers and our brand fans?
Everything starts with really understanding the customers. Look, the only difference is that Procter used to call them consumers. Procter used to say consumer is boss. In Kroger, we say customer first. And of course, at the end, consumers or customers, we are talking about people. And every idea, whether it's new or is rehashed, needs to start with a very good customer understanding. And this is why data, insights, primary research, being able to really understand the why behind the what of people's behavior is crucial in evaluating every idea out there. It all starts and ends with understanding the customer.
It's understanding the customer, and you said it's really about people. It comes back to people. And as marketers, we are people. So what parts of your personal life, what parts of you as a person helps inform your work as a marketer?
You make me think now. If I go back when I started, my first job offer was actually from a financial institution. And then I met somebody from marketing who said, given your personality, I think you really enjoy working in marketing. And I think what he meant was you need to have a passion for people to work in marketing. So I always had a passion for people. I get inspired by people. I love the relationship aspect of getting to know people. And a marketeer is a combination of a businessman and a psychologist, because you really want to understand what's behind people's behavior. So studying consumers' behavior always been very important to me. And I must say, today in my job, I'm even in a better position because a retailer like Kroger is even closer to people than a CPG, because we interact with them on a daily basis across all the different stores and digital assets we have.
So when you are interacting with the consumers on on a closer basis, was there anything that was kind of surprising that you found about customers that you didn't really notice when you were looking at them as consumers?
Again, plenty of learnings, if I think. Probably, if I want to summarize a big learning, is most people underestimate how difficult it is to change people's behaviors. Something else I've learned over time is that what people claim they would like to do or what they claim they would do doesn't always translate in what they actually do. So changing consumers' behavior is one of the most difficult capabilities, one of the most difficult actions that good brands, good marketing people need to do.
Something is happening. The familiar barcode is touching everything. Every surface, every sound, every image. Imperceptible to you, yet it's clear to sensors like your smartphone. All things have become their own channels. This is the engine driving the Internet of Things. This is Digimarc.
Historically, most people were focused on what we call functional needs. Saves me money, saves me time. Now, to be clear, those functional needs are still very important. But what we are learning, we are seeing the emergence of three more emotional needs when consumers are telling us what they're looking for in their shopping and brand relationship. The first one is I feel connected. I want to feel connected to my community, but also to the brands I'm having a relationship with. They also tell us I want to feel inspired. And finally, they tell us I want to feel cared for. So if you think about both the two functional needs and the three more emotional needs can be amplified tremendously by the new digital capabilities and digital world we live in. Because through digital and physical experiences, you can really fulfill the consumer needs in a more complete way.
As a person, as a customer, as a consumer, which brands are fulfilling those needs for you? Which ones are connecting to you, making you feel cared for?
So I grew up in a country like Italy where I was surrounded by beauty and by some amazing brands. If you're into cars, now I grew up in the world of Ferrari or Alfa Romeo, and if you're into fashion, I grew up in the land of Valentino or Armani. I can tell you one of my passions is food. And that's why today I work in a great company for me because I love people and I love food. And I think Kroger does an amazing job on both. So for the people who know me very well, they know I got a crazy passion for Nutella, which is the chocolate spread. And I get random gifts from people who know me because they know the connectivity through food. Mm-hmm. So Nutella is a big emotional brand for me because it connects at multiple levels, sensory and of course through kind of food.
Yeah, and Nutella's a really good example of smart marketing too, because I think of Nutella's marketing campaigns maybe 10 years ago as just, this is chocolate, this is hazelnut, this tastes good. And now it's all about connection. Like you often see Nutella in a television commercial and they're connecting it with the experience, like sharing Nutella, making a Nutella spread sandwich or something for your child, actually more of a spread on toast. It's a moment you can treasure with your family, and it's really about that connecting and caring. And it's interesting, I think that it's this concept of connecting and caring really can translate across industries, because this is something we also saw in the marketing of Pampers. Pampers used to be, the driest diaper you could ever buy. And now Pampers is about connecting to your child. And so no matter what category you're in, no matter what market you're in, there's always this opportunity to connect if we look for it as marketers.
Yeah. So it's a great example of the importance of first and foremost being clear on the end state. I think I mentioned before, every brand needs to have a purpose, and the purpose should answer the question why the brand exists. And once you define the purpose, you want to tell a story about the brand. So you mentioned Nutella. I love the brand. I do not study their marketing, but where I agree with you, they do two things which are pretty amazing. They keep the quality of the products high. Of course, not everybody agrees chocolate is high quality, but I do. And they also go to market with a storytelling that goes beyond the taste of chocolate. It's just one example of how a big brand does a good job. And there are plenty of examples of small, medium, and large brands who do this very well.
PrintPack, converting vision into value. At PrintPack, we believe in creating packaging solutions that deliver positive results for your brands. Collaboration at the very beginning of a new product or package design venture is the key to success. Our innovation approach combines your vision with our knowledge of consumer trends to create packaging that enhances your brand and drives your success.
So we have a number of tools to help us connect with consumers, with customers now. And those include big data. We are able to collect data in a way that is so much grander than just having the consumer focus group. How has data collection, big data, empowered you as a marketer to be able to recognize new opportunities?
First, I don't think any company or any brand can afford to survive without having the data, but more importantly, the ability or the capability to do something good with the data. You know, data only is necessary but not sufficient. What's sufficient is to make necessary and sufficient is the ability to turn the data into relevant, workable insights that can be transformed into a storytelling or a marketing plan or a go-to-market activity that resonate with the consumers you want to connect with. So data is the starting point, having the science, the analytics, the ability to turn the data into tools to help management make the right decision as fast as possible is the name of the game.
And how do you train your teams to be able to help you make these decisions well? So you have all this data, you have all this information that's there. How do you help your teams be able to take that information, analyze it, and give it to you in a way that allows you to make a decision quickly and the best decision possible?
So every company has a different approach. My experience relates to two big companies. Both of them are extremely focused and obsessed about doing good with the data. If I can talk about my current experience, Kroger partnered with a company called 8451 that now became part of the Kroger family, and they're amongst the best in the world in taking the data and turning them into some amazing insights and workable plans. And they combine analytics, science, and primary research. They're really an amazing partner in turning the data into something that every decision maker, whether it's marketing or some of the other functions, are able to use the data to make the right decision.
So this data that you're getting, this partner, this internal partner that you're collaborating with, so you've got this great internal partner you're collaborating with, you're able to really be able to kind of shape this kind of information to make really great decisions. Is there a product or a service that the average Kroger, Mariano's customer would recognize or know, and that came from these insights?
I can tell you that every decision that we take is somehow linked to data. So whether it's the right assortment for a certain store in a certain location, the profiling of a certain consumer who we know is more open to a certain assortment, pricing, what is the right value equation to give people across the assortment, where to open a store, how to design a store. Every single decision, if I think about it, is somehow related to a good, smart use of data. So every brand you see there, every assortment, every promotion, every activity is the result of a good data analytics and good recommendation based on the data analysis.
But emotion still plays a big part of it.
Huge part of it. Okay, that's how you bring the brand to life. I always say to myself and to the people I work with, it's always a combination of data and intuition. If you only use intuition, it's great, but you miss a big part of what the data can tell you. And if you only use data, you may miss the magic of an amazing idea. And I really think the best marketing people I work with are able to combine data and intuition in a wonderful, magical mix.
And when you're building your teams and you come into a new company, and I know that you've spent a lot of time at Procter Gamble, maybe perhaps even, let's say, a new department, a new division, a new country, because you've even worked for companies on different continents. How do you begin to develop those attributes in your team to be able to really ensure that they're able to deliver on these things? Because I'm sure previous leaders are developing their teams for what they consider to be important attributes, important skill sets for what their goals are.
Some of my experiences where I moved country and I inherited a team or a group to lead. First thing I did is also to try to understand the past. You always want to understand the past because there are lots of things from the past that you want to keep. You always want to honor the past and being able to repeat behaviors that you know are still relevant and valid for the future. If I think about a team, and this is for marketing, but frankly any team I've experienced with, you want to make sure they understand where they're going. Whether you call this purpose or vision, you just want to make sure that people are clear what you are trying to aspire to. You also want to give people work they feel is meaningful. I never work with anybody who doesn't get inspired if they understand how their work means something. So being able to create an environment, a culture, where people understand each other's dependencies and what they do as a team and individuals makes a difference. And then you got the usual opportunity of making sure that you try to eliminate internal silos. You want to make sure the reward system is lined up to the work plans, and you want to create a culture where failure is not a stigma.
Within different organizations, though, there is a certain amount of appetite for failure. I mean, we talk often about let's influence the C-suite, but the C-suite has shareholders to listen to. How do you frame that conversation about failure in such a way that the C-suite can bring it to the shareholders? How do you help them sell the idea of failure to all the people that your upper management has to listen to?
Now, nobody wants to fail as a company, and every company has some very clear deliverables that they need to deliver over time. The point I was trying to make is you want to create amongst the team the permission to fail. It's okay to make some mistakes because it's through the learning of the mistakes that you can become better. Now, Linda, obviously, if a company only makes mistakes and they only deliver failures, that's not really very sustainable.
No.
But also you don't want to create a fear factor where people, rather than taking the right risk because they're afraid of failing, they don't move. And this is difficult, right? I think everybody is trying to do that because you do not want to only drive failures. You want to use failure as learning platforms to move faster and better for the next project.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we're seeing such a public example of that with Amazon. When Amazon came out with the phone, it was pretty resoundingly a failure. But they took the phone and the learnings they had from the phone and they brought it to Alexa, which was the virtual assistant that they had in the phone as well as their home speaker, and decided to take that and really begin to grow and refine the Echo. And they were able to take that failure and make it an asset for a different project. As a best practice, how do you as a marketer, whether you're working in food, whether you're working in personal care, no matter what industry you're working in, how do you encourage your teams to take that learning from the failure and share it, because it's also publicizing a failure, so that maybe somewhere else in the organization that learning can be optimized?
You want to create a climate of open, unbiased discussions. This is where the connection with data is very important.
Yes.
Do we have a good analysis of what went wrong? Are we using the analysis to design on time better plans for the future? And I don't want to come across that this is something easy. Everybody's striving to create this. The example you mentioned of Amazon is one of many of a company who's done this well. You always want to build on the learnings from the past to do a much better job in the future. And as I said before, I always combine data, intuition, and a culture where people feel encouraged not only to fail, but also to talk openly about the learnings that come from the failure.
So some of the best examples that we were talking about of taking failure and taking those learnings and making it a success involve taking information across the department, maybe even across to a partner. So how can marketers improve collaboration and communication across departments within an organization and across all the partners that they work with?
So maybe one way to look at this, first and foremost, is consumer understanding. Right? The best marketing people need to spend a crazy amount of time trying to understand their consumers or customers. Now then internally, it's interesting because there's no way you can move fast these days without a couple of skill sets like collaboration and working well with each other. And what I mean by that is not just we get on with each other, it's really we have an open discussion where we exchange the data, the analysis, and our intuition for a result that is much more profound that only I or you look at this alone. So this collaboration, this cross-reference, this cross-communication between departments and between members of the same team is crucial. The other point you mentioned on partnership, this is my personal point of view, but no companies, no group today can really thrive alone. I think every group needs to think about who should I partner with, who can be helpful, both internally, so other functions, but even more importantly, externally. What are the right partners out there who can help us move faster and become more relevant, again with the customer at the center of everything we do.
How do you know when you should be partnering with an outside group versus using an internal group for a project?
Normally, a partnership is driven by maybe a capability the partner has that you don't have internally. Maybe they got some technology that it would take much longer to develop internally. Maybe they have talent with a set of skills that it would take, again, too long, too much time to build internally. Maybe they got people with a perspective that is different than the industry that you represent, and this diversity of experiences, this diversity of thinking, and the combination of different assets or capabilities is where the magic gets created.
And diversity of thinking is so important, and it's something that has been kind of a thread throughout your career because you've grew up in Italy, but as we've kind of touched upon, you also lived further north, up in Europe, and you've now lived in the US. So having this kind of diversity of thinking is really important as far as being able to bring a personal background to your products. How do you make sure that you have teams that represent kind of diversity of thought?
The first one of the things that maybe few people know is despite the accent, who stayed very Italian, I never worked in Italy. And I also never worked in my original language. If you want to laugh, the very first time I had a meeting, a business presentation in Italian, it was a few years ago, and it was very awkward because all my business language has been learned in English. So yes, I have a bit of an experience of working and living across different cultures, and respect goes a long way. You want to really understand and respect the culture, the place you are in. I mentioned before, you want to take time to understand the past. Lots of learnings come from the past. I always say you want to honor the past or leverage the past to make a better future. You don't want to stay only in the past, but not taking the time to understand the past is a huge mistake. And then you want to feel comfortable to surround yourself with people with different points of view. And then you encourage the discussion and you coordinate the dialogue where you see people with different points of view. People who may not agree with you, but have a different point of view. And the best leaders I work with are leaders who embrace this diversity of thoughts, this diversity of experiences for a bigger, better common ground.
So when we talk about diversity of opinion, diversity of consumer needs, and definitions of connectivity, how does connecting and caring, how does it differ when you're looking to connect and care for someone who's a shopper of maybe the Gen X or a millennial or even a baby boomer?
Every brand needs to be clear on who they want to talk to, who they want to start a relationship with, and how they want to interact with in their market. The great news about digital is that it's allowing brands and is allowing consumers to have a very different dialogue than only 2 years back. So digital is accelerating the ability for brands to be able to connect to consumers to a level of personal relationship that was not possible in the past. At the same time, consumers are able to talk to brands directly in a way where before they did not have any access. There's the ability through some of these platforms to be able to really convey the right message, but also to listen to consumers so you can improve your brand proposition based on the input of the consumers directly. And what's amazing that today everything happens in real time. You can really act on a marketing campaign, on a marketing plan in real time. And this is why the digital and the physical infrastructure allow you to do that.
Talking about real time, it's got to change how people are building their brand Bibles. How has figuring out where your brand proposition, being able to kind of pivot as necessary, how does it change how you build your brand strategy?
I'm not sure it changed the brand strategies, but for sure it's going to change dramatically the marketing plan. Brands are also able, because of real time, to read consumer sentiments or consumers' reaction, positive or negative, in a way that was never happened before. And what's happening today is consumers have much more power because their voice becomes very, very big. And we know plenty of examples, without quoting specific brands, where brands had to either withdraw or change the marketing plans because the consumer sentiment was becoming very negative. It would have never happened before.
Definitely, and when we talk about consumer sentiment, we obviously are talking social. Social media has really changed the landscape, and it is something that we've even seen the biggest brands, such as Apple, not begin to jump in until recently. So how can a marketer smartly leverage social without controlling it so much where it loses its authenticity?
That's where it becomes a bit of a science and a bit of an art. It all starts from, do you have the right capabilities to be present where the social discussions are happening? Because the first stage in most things is awareness. Do you know what consumers are saying about your brands? Do you know where these discussions are happening? Do you know why these discussions are happening? And this sounds kind of trivial, but it has a huge ecosystem of activities that the brand needs to build to make sure you are able to do this every single day. Social never stops, so the brand is live 24/7. The good news is you can really leverage social to create an even stronger brand. And if, God forbid, the news is negative, what is your action or reaction plan to ensure that this social negativity doesn't become too big and becomes unmanageable?
How has the way that we're evaluating our potential investments changed since you started in your career? And what opportunities do we have as an industry to do it better, to make smarter investments?
So if I compare, it's a good question because it allows me to think a few years back and now. Maybe the two biggest differences are the amount of data and the real-time ability to assess this bigger amount of data and their impact on the consumer's behavior. So there's much more data. So you didn't mention, but most people talk ROI.
Yes.
So what is the return on the investment? And every brand manager needs to become, frankly, a bit obsessed about how am I spending the brand's budget and what is the return on my investment. So the good news is more data is available, but again, without the analytical skills, without the science behind the data stays a bunch of numbers. You want to have the capability to be able to read and learn and analyze what the data is telling you.
Definitely. One of the hardest things about analyzing the data is that marketing versus manufacturing, and this is not showing a preference to either one. I've covered marketing and covered manufacturing. I love them both for different reasons. It's not so clear because marketing, in essence, in its very being, is synergistic. So how do you begin to really look at those investments and begin to break down where the return is? Because you can maybe figure out your ROI for the campaign in whole, but breaking it down for certain segments is
So
difficult.
if I understand the question correctly, every investment in today's world should be able to be analyzed, and every investment should have an ROI attached to it. And it is possible because of the quantity and quality of data available. So every company, every brand needs to have the ability to analyze the data and be able to answer whether this investment was worth doing or not. And based on the learnings, you're going to adjust the future plans, taking the learnings into consideration. So I don't see, from an ROI point of view, I don't see a difference between functional activity. Every big investment needs to be able to be quantified because of the data availability in today's economy.
So it's good. So you're basically saying that it's not okay, it's not acceptable to say it's synergistic, therefore you can't break it out. You should be able to break it out.
You should be able to break it out. So data is able to answer the question on ROI. Then you still have the creativity, the magic, the fantasy that is required to create some amazing marketing plans. But every investment somehow should be able to be measured to ensure that the return is worth the investment.
How much data do you collect? How much analysis do you do before you begin to really look deeply at a new investment?
My experience is around two companies that, for different reasons in different industries, are very data driven. So my answer is a bit biased because I grew up in a company like Proctor where data was always at the center of our discussions. And now I work for a company like Kroger together with 8451 where data is also an incredibly important asset in making our decisions. So if I go back in my past, most of the decisions, the big important decisions, were always helped by a smart use of data and analysis. And therefore, I'm biased by, I will always look at data as an important component for decision making.
What's the strongest data that you look at? What's the data that is most influential when you're looking at where to put your money as far as a new investment goes?
Every decision a company needs to make is influenced by data. And if you think about the hundreds of decisions a company needs to make, examples, where to open the next store, where to open the next manufacturing plant, should we consolidate 2 distribution centers? Now we're in a store, what is the right assortment for the community we serve? So every decision really requires a good data set and the skills to be able to analyze this. Whether you're in marketing, in manufacturing, in logistics, in product supply, wherever you are, the common denominator, in my opinion, is having the data and being able to analyze it to give you some amazing conclusions to help you make some decisions.
You've had strong opinions since you were very young. You talked about when you were in Italy, you actually paid attention to the brands that are around you. You paid attention to the fact that they were really connected to their consumers. So you were very aware of your surroundings. I imagine you were very aware of yourself, very young. When you were young, did you imagine yourself as a marketer?
At what point I wanted to become maybe a lawyer, and then I decided not to pursue it. But then I went to this great business school in Italy, and I started liking business. So business became my profession, if you want. And then within business, what really happened was I really did not know what marketing was versus some other function, but I met some amazing people, and frankly, I trusted their judgment. They told me that based on our interviews and interaction with me, I would enjoy marketing, so marketing is where I started. But then over time, I moved away from marketing and I entered much more general management, where marketing is one important but not only functions you work with.
And what is the one career accomplishment that you are most proud of?
Look, I work with a lot of people, so I want to believe that some of the time I spend trying to help people grow and develop made a difference for them. So probably the biggest accomplishment is the time these people gave me to be able to work together along the journey of self-development. I for sure learned a lot from them, and I hope I give something back. I mentor lots of people, and I'm in touch with most of them, and I must say I'm very proud of their accomplishment. So if I played a small role in their accomplishment, that makes me very proud.
Was there someone who mentored you that you particularly want to highlight a spotlight, talk about?
So plenty of people did some amazing investments in me. I really don't want to single out anybody. I don't think it would be fair to some of the others, but I've been very lucky and blessed to have and continue to have people who spend time trying to make me better. And I want to give back to some of the other people because of the gift I got from these people.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you've mentored others. So is this through a formal mentoring program, or are these just individuals that you've come across in life and decided to put on your way?
A bit of both.
Okay.
There are, in some situations, there's a more formal program where you appoint or select or are given mentors, but I believe much more in the personal touch, where there is a common ground where the people believe you can help them and you believe you can help them. And based on my experience, those are the best experiences for both parties.
Can you tell me something about yourself that most people don't know?
So I grew up in a pretty amazing place, in a ski resort in the Alps. So every day after school with my friends, we used to dash away from school, from our homes, and spent all afternoon skiing away in the Alps.
And now you call Cincinnati home?
Yes, our first experience with Cincinnati was back in the year 2000. I was working for Proctor Gamble abroad, and we came here to work here for 3 years. My wife was also with Proctor, and we were blessed with our 2 kids being born in Cincinnati. So I'm Italian, she's Irish, our kids were born in Cincinnati, and we will always call Cincinnati home. We love it here, and after so many years with one company, Proctor, 3 years ago I joined another amazing company, very, very important for the local community, which is Kroger. So I love to be able to be associated to the city through also working with 2 amazing companies that are very important here locally.
Yes, definitely. And you're giving back to the community in different types of initiatives, one of which is you're going to be speaking to the local community, actually the international community, at a Cincinnati-based event that's coming to town that's focused on branding and marketing. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your presentation at Brandemonium?
Yeah, Brandemonium is a new idea that hopefully will create some great excitement for the city and frankly marketing and branding in general. So it's going to happen in October, and actually I'm going to do a bit of a piece on branding and how to build amazing brands with Jim Stengel, who's the former Chief Marketing Officer of the Procter & Gamble company. So we'll be there in October, and hopefully we'll see lots of people coming and having a discussion with us on what it takes to build amazing brands today and in the future.
To learn more about the 2017 Brandemonium Conference and Festival, visit www.brandemonium.com and use promo code BXP2017 to save 10% on your registration. And we would like to end this episode with a dedication to Margo Chase. Many in our community have reached out to share their sadness over the passing of Margo. In addition to being founder and chief creative officer of Chase Design Group, Margo was an accomplished aviator who loved the art of flying. She passed in an aviation accident on Saturday, July 22nd. In this episode, Alex talked about people's emotional needs. Specifically, Alex discussed the need to feel connected, the need to be cared for, and the need to be inspired. It is clear from the outpouring of response to Margo's death that she was strongly connected to our community. She made people feel cared for, and she inspired them.